Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to your KCAL Insurance Agency event. My name is John C.Stoessel. I'm a Southern California Edison employee and a member of Speakers Bureau. And I'm here today to talk to you about energy saving and solar panel, mainly residential solar panel rooftop topics. So without any further ado, let's get right into the presentation because we have a lot to cover with a limited amount of time. So the first thing I would like to talk about is net energy metering, or NEM 3.0. There's been a lot of talk about this lately, changes that are going to be made in the area of rooftop solar and specifically in what utilities pay for excess electricity and charges that might be imposed on customers with rooftop solar. So let me start this out by saying, currently there is no net energy metering 3.0. Rooftop solar systems that go in and start generating today are under net energy metering 2.0. The process is still going through the development stage where people are submitting their proposed changes for net energy metering 3.0. At some point that will stop and it will go into a debate. And then when that ends, the California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC, will vote and establish what NEM 3.0 is. Until that time, solar installations that come online will be under net energy metering 2.0. Now, while we don't know specifically what NEM 3.0 will be, we do have some ideas of the direction that it's going and how it will impact future solar installers. So again, reminding you, currently NEM 2.0 still governs rooftop solar installations. And in fact, they're grandfathered under the contract that you enter in for net energy metering 2.0 for, I believe, 20 years from the date of installation and generation. So even if the NEM 3.0 coming on board, you'll still be under net energy metering 2.0. It is potentially an incentive for you to install before the change in the law occurs. Well, we do know that it will lower the price that utilities will pay customers for excess generation. How much? We don't know. But currently under NEM 2.0, the utility buys the power at the retail rate, essentially the same price they sell it to you, they buy it back, the excess. That will probably be considerably less than that under NEM 3.0. The utilities want to move the price closer to what they pay in the open market for electricity. Another thing that they will do is add additional charges to people with rooftop solar to cover the operation and the maintenance of the grid. Because right now, those are built into your utility bills, but if your generation is equaling or exceeding your energy usage, it could completely cancel out your utility bill and you would be paying nothing for operation and maintenance of the grid, recognizing that the grid is critical to you being able to sell power back to the utility and also is critical to you having power when the sun's not shining, which is for most parts half the day, or when you don't have sufficient sunlight to give you the generation you need to run all the things that you need to operate in your home. So it seems fair that you should be paying something for that maintenance and operation. Now, what that number is, unknown, but I have seen estimates that put the number significantly high, I would say. Also, there's discussion about reducing the grandfathering time period from 20 years to, say, maybe something more like 5, 10, or 15 years of grandfathering into it. So that would limit the amount of time that you would have under the current plan when you start generating to any changes that happen in the future. Now, why is net energy metering 3.0 even being considered? Well, recognize that net energy metering was established in order to develop a rooftop solar industry, to encourage people to put solar panels on their roof, to provide a much faster payback period through the purchase of electricity at a very high price by the utilities. And over time, that has accomplished its goal. It's established a business. Solar installations have come down significantly in price. And right now, I think in California alone, there's over 1 million rooftop solar installations. So that system has matured to the point where there's a feeling that that level of incentive or subsidizing is no longer necessary. And it's actually hurting the non-solar customers who then have to bear the burden of things like grid operation and maintenance costs because solar people are generating in excess and not paying anything toward that. So that's why net energy metering 3.0, it is a natural evolution of the net energy metering concept. And there probably will be a 5.0 and a 6.0 going into the future, who knows, but this is what we do know at this time. So you may want to consider installing solar sooner rather than later so that you can get under NEM 2.0 rather than be locked into NEM 3.0. The next thing I'd like to talk about is your summer electric bill. And in California, Southern California in particular, many people get surprises in the summertime with their electric bills. And why is that? Because we have hot weather like we've been having for the last few weeks, and people need to run their air conditioners in order to be comfortable. And your air conditioner is probably your biggest power draw in your home when it's operating. And if it has to operate a significant number of hours a day to keep you comfortable, you're going to have to use a lot of electricity, and that's going to cost you. Now, if we look at programs that are available, the rate structure that you're under will determine whether things change in the summer or not. And essentially, Edison has two billing options. They have a tiered rate and a time of use rate. Now, if you have rooftop solar, you're automatically moved into time of use. If you don't, then you have an option of being tiered or time of use. And how do they differ? Well, the tiered rate, there are 3 tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And in each of those tiers, there's an amount of electricity, energy that you're able to use until you move into the next higher tier. Tier 1 is called your baseline. And that's determined by the type of home you have. And that determines a baseline amount of electricity that I feel is necessary to provide the essentials for livability. But in the event that you're running air conditioners quite often, or you have multiple refrigerators, or you have other draws on your electricity, maybe an electric car, you could move into tier 2. And tier 2 has a certain amount of energy within that tier that you can purchase at a higher price. And then the highest is tier 3. And there you go from a certain amount of energy to as much as you want to use, and you're paying the same amount for it, but it's more. And it goes up considerably from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. In fact, in tier 1, you're actually paying less than the cost of us to produce and deliver the electricity. So you're getting it at below cost, but that's made up by tier 2 and tier 3. Those rates, to the best of my knowledge, they don't change in the summer and the winter. The rate is constant. Now, time of use is different. There's actually 3 periods of time during the day that electricity is priced at a different price. And it doesn't matter how much you use during those times, you pay the same unit price for that electricity. In this case, dollars per kilowatt hour. Now, that also has different rates on the weekends and the weekdays and the summer or the winter. So it's a bit more complicated than the tiered system. So one allows you to use electricity at a lower cost if you can manage your electric use. The other tells you that if you can manage the time when you use electricity, you can control your price, the amount you have to pay, and the total amount that you're going to have to pay. So only in the time of use is there a difference in summer versus winter electric rates. But if your bill is much larger in the summertime, as I said earlier, it's most likely because you're running an air conditioner, and that's costing you more. That's using more energy, and that's going to cost you more money to purchase that energy, regardless of whether you're under tiered or time of use. Now, power saving tips. How can you save electricity? And there are things that you can do. For instance, if you are on time of use, you can look and make sure that you're using electricity wisely and using it at times when it's less expensive. Now, the peak time is somewhere between 4 and 9 o'clock. You can be on a 4 to 8 or 5 to 9 time of use structure. And there's different rates for each of those. But it's essentially the late afternoon into the early evening hours is the peak electric use time, and that's where you're going to pay the highest price for your electricity. So if you can shift the use of your electricity to the lower tier, either in the morning and early afternoon or after the early evening, when the electricity is cheaper, you can manage your costs then. So for instance, don't do your laundry during peak times. Do it in the off-peak times. Don't charge your car during the peak times. If you have an electric vehicle, charge it during the off-peak times. If you can avoid running your air conditioner during the peak time, that can save you electricity too, because it's more than likely your air conditioner is going to use the same amount of energy. Doesn't really matter what time of the day you're using it, but it will because of the difference in cost depending on when you're using it. Now, the other thing you can do, and this has a minor effect, but it does have an effect nonetheless, is unplug devices that are plugged in, especially devices that have any type of a light or a display that stays on when you turn the device off, like a clock, a light that indicates that the system is plugged in, because those draw electricity. What keeps those lights on or those displays displaying is energy. It's not a lot. We call it energy vampire because it's kind of sucking energy when you don't even know it's happening. So recognize that, and perhaps instead of just turning something off, you make sure that you cut the power off to it. Either put it on a switched socket, which means that when you turn a switch off and on, it actually stops electricity flow to that particular plug. So anything plugged into that will get no electricity, or you can just unplug those devices. It'll have a small effect, but an effect nonetheless. And then there's the SCE budget assistance. On our website, you can find the number and you can reach out to them and see if they can help you to give you ideas of how to manage your budget. I mean, they'll go through things similar to what I just did. They'll try to analyze your electric use through asking questions and try to give you some ideas of how you can shift things around so that you can reduce your energy bills. I think that's an option that's open to anybody. If they want to look deep enough into it, you'll find ways to save your electricity, because most of us don't use it as wisely as we could. Next thing I'd like to talk about is rebates and incentives that SCE has for electric use and pricing of electricity and your bills, because that's the bottom line, is what are you paying? The first I'd like to make you aware of, if you're not already aware of this, is the medical baseline program. Now, this program really only affects you financially if you're on the tiered system. It doesn't help you on the time of use. In fact, I was on the tiered system. I had medical baseline, and when I moved to the time of use system, when I put solar in, all of a sudden medical baseline didn't provide me anything, and you'll see why when I explain what that is. Medical baseline is if you have a medical device in your home that requires electricity to operate and it's important to sustaining the quality of life, then you can submit an application and you can have your base tier 1 energy amount increased to cover that medical device. So it doesn't penalize you in tier 1. So for instance, I have a CPAP machine for sleep apnea. That qualifies, and you can get that, and they'll bump up your baseline so that you have more energy available in the tier 1 at the lowest cost. Now, as I said, if you're in time of use, this doesn't really help you. It does in one way though, and that is if there are going to be outages where we're going to disconnect service from your area, if you're on the medical baseline program, it's set up to alert you to the fact that there is going to be power outages in your area, when and for how long they're predicted, so that you can prepare for those with those medical devices. But it isn't going to help you financially like it can if you're under the tiered system. There's also the summer discount program. This is one you sign up for, and they put a device on your air conditioning compressor and outside, and it allows the utility to disconnect your compressor. So essentially your air conditioning system stops operating on certain days that are considered high energy use days, where we're concerned that the energy demand is going to exceed the amount that we can supply, and we might be forced into rolling brownouts or blackouts. So we have people set up on these programs, I'm on this, so that they can turn off your compressor. And there's various stages of this that you can sign up for, where you can override it a certain number of times, or an indefinite number of times, or no times at all, where it can't be overridden. And of course, the more severe the installation restrictions, the higher you get reimbursed for this in your bill. I think it just turns out to be a single credit to your bill after a certain period of time during the summer months, when they determine how many times you were subjected to it, and if you overrode it and all of that. But you have to recognize that if you sign up for the best program, you won't be able to override. And when they shut it off, it's going to be on a hot day, because that's what's going to create this supply-demand problem. And you're not going to have your air conditioner. So you may have to leave the home and go someplace else that has air conditioning, or just grin and bear it until the power comes back on. There's a smart energy program that helps you if you install a smart thermostat that Edison, the company, can communicate with through your smart meter, because it gives Edison some control over your appliances, like your thermostat and your temperature settings on your thermostat. So in return for that intrusion, you get money back through this program. Edison also has portable generator and electric portable power station rebates, where they will give back a portion of the purchase price of either one of these devices to provide backup power. And you can go to the website and see, and I think it's based on the cost of the item, how much the rebate is. There's also a smart meter rebate, smart thermostat rebate, where the thermostat in your home is a smart thermostat, programmable, communicatable, and if you buy that, you can get some money back from Edison for the purchase of that. Edison also has EV rebates, new and used electric vehicle purchases. They have money that you can get if you purchase a new or a used EV. For more details, you can go to the website to see how much each of those rebates are. There's a home or business area network rebate. If you put in a home or business area network for your computer system, you can get a rebate for that. There's a Go Green Energy, home energy financing. It's called Go Green. And what that does, it provides attractive financing rates for people to do energy efficiency and energy improvements in their home, insulation, installation, hot water heater, double pane windows, et cetera, et cetera. So again, you can get more information on that. It's not a rebate, but it provides you an incentive in a lower interest rate for your loans. And then there's the SE Bill Assistance Program, which if you're having problems paying your bill, you should always reach out to the utility at the earliest time that you recognize that, and not let it build over time, and have the utility coming to you asking you when you're going to pay your electric bill. Rather, be proactive. Tell them you're having a problem. We understand that, especially after COVID. A lot of people have had issues paying their utility bills. A lot of them are far behind on their utility bills now. There is a program that can help you with that. It's not going to pay for all your electricity bills going forward, but it can provide you some assistance, some relief from those utility bills that have accumulated over a period of time, and you just don't see an end in sight. It can provide some breathing room for you there. Best is to reach out to Edison's customer service to get more information on that. Next, I'd like to talk about rooftop solar specifically. I installed rooftop solar about 1.5 years ago. NEM 2.0 is in place. I'll be grandfathered when it goes to NEM 3.0, so I'm really not concerned about 3.0. But what this does say again is, if you're considering installing rooftop solar, it might be a good idea to do it sooner rather than later, while you can still have an opportunity to get under NEM 2.0. That's not a guarantee, because the system may put a deadline of installations beyond a certain point. They'll fall under 3.0. Nobody knows, because it hasn't been established yet. But either way, your safest bet would be to put it in. But if it does happen, you've got NEM 2.0 still in place, and it'll be very much more lucrative, I believe. One thing we can say is the electric rates that utilities, including Edison, charge have been rising, and they'll likely continue that same trajectory into the foreseeable future. We have to spend so much money each year on building out our infrastructure, not just replacing things that are getting old and deteriorated, but expanding the system for the whole idea of electrification of our economy. Right now, we don't have enough. The system cannot handle everything being turned to electricity going forward. If you could magically just switch everything that runs off of fossil fuel to electricity, the system couldn't handle it. There isn't enough generation. There's not enough transmission and distribution to handle that. So we're building this out as quickly as we can, but it's still costing billions of dollars a year to meet the goals that the states put in place for 2030, 2035, and 2045. So you can rest assured that your utility bills are likely going to continue to go up. By how much, I don't know, but they are. Rooftop solar still qualifies for a federal tax credit, and that could help you offset the initial cost of installation. Depending on your tax situation, you may be able to get back, I believe it's 22 or 26% of the cost of your solar installation as a tax credit in the year that it was installed. So that can cut back on the amount that the payback period that you have to incur. Another thing is to consider the age and condition of your roof before you put panels on it. Any good solar installer should be doing that and warning you if your roof is in bad shape, it's deteriorated, it's got problems, it needs to be repaired or fixed, that you should do that before you put the solar panels on. Because a leaky roof is still going to be a leaky roof with solar panels. They're not designed to keep the roof from leaking. So if you got an old roof that's reaching the end of its life, best that you replace the roof and put the solar panels on at the same time. That increases the cost, but it's more expensive to put the solar panels on than to have to take them off to put a new roof on. And you may even be able to get part of that roof covered in the tax credits. Your home insurance premiums will likely increase if you add solar. You're adding value to your home. They're going to increase the value of your home, increase the replacement cost, and that's going to increase your premiums. Recognize that if you don't inform your insurance company of having put solar panels on your roof, and you have an event that causes a loss to those solar panels, and you didn't add them into your policy, it's likely that your policy won't cover replacement of them because they weren't part of what the insurance company was insuring. So be aware of that. If you put them in, it's best to get in touch with your insurance company and work that out and see if you need to pay a little bit more to cover that. Because anything that was caused by those solar panels could also be considered a non-claim. For instance, if they started a fire that burned your house down, it's possible. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about electrical safety. And we like to always talk about this topic when we have these events because it's important that electricity is a great thing, probably the greatest invention in the history of mankind. If you think about all the things that are powered by electricity, and without that, all those items would be gone. Your phones, computers, cars, parts, even the gasoline cars have electricity to operate, not just the engine, but many other parts of the car. Just so much that electricity provides us. But we can never get too comfortable with it at the point that we forget how dangerous it can truly be if you use it incorrectly or haphazardly. First thing is never approach down power lines. Don't even get close to them, because getting close to them is enough to potentially result in electrocution. You don't even have to touch them, just get close enough to them. The electricity can flow through the ground, and under the right conditions can flow through your body. Your body's a very good conductor of electricity because our nerve impulses are basically electrical impulses traveling through our body. So that nerve network creates a good network for electricity to flow on. So don't approach it, stay away from it. Call 911, just like any other emergency. Down power line, here at this location. If you can, you can stand by and make people aware of it if they come in and near approaching it. Make them aware of it, guide them around it. Metallic balloons. People love these things for celebrations like birthdays, graduations, etc. And little kids have a lot of fun with them. But the power industry, the electric utility industry, does not like metallic balloons very much. And the reason for that, people take them outdoors, they let go of them, they float up into the power lines, they're metallic, so they're conductors, they cross the phases, and the next thing you know, you've got down power lines, a wildfire because the metallic balloon catches on fire, falls to the ground, starts a fire, knocks power out to a group of people, a community. So we do not like these, and we've seen an uptick in situations that involve metallic balloons. I know that the law now requires that they put weights on the end of the strings on metallic balloons to keep them from floating away. However, people take them off because they like to see them float away, and at least inside the house up into the roof, and the kids jump up and try to hit and grab the tether on it. But they ultimately take them outside and they let go of them, and once they let go, it's gone. It'll float away so fast, you'll never stop it. And it gets into our power lines and it creates some real problems. So keep them indoors. Be aware of overhead power lines when you're working outdoors. You know, if you have a long pole, like you're trimming trees, climbing a ladder, be aware of what's over your head and around you overhead, not just around you at eye level. Because you don't want to be moving, say, the cutting blade of a pole tree trimmer up into the power line. And if you provide that through a tool you're holding and you attach to the ground, then electricity will gladly take that invitation and flow down through that tool, through you, down to the ground. And the power that's in the primary conductors, which are the ones running at the top of the power lines, which are typically uninsulated, by the way, they're just bare wires. Those have more than enough energy to electrocute you. If you come in contact with those, your chances of surviving are low, your chances of death are high. So be aware of that when you're working outdoors. And just recognize that electricity makes our quality of life possible, but it must be respected for the harm it can cause if you neglect safe practices and situational awareness. So very simple, you know, take advantage of the opportunities that electricity provides, but use it smartly and wisely, and safely. Now let's talk about the public safety power shutoffs. I don't know how many of you are subject to this, but if you live in a high fire area, you likely have been affected by this, because we now can come in and preemptively disconnect service to an area to reduce the possibility of our service, our electric service, igniting a wildfire through mostly weather changes, high winds, high temperatures, low humidity. Those things can wreak havoc on our system and put us in situations where we become the igniter of a wildfire. Something blows up into our power lines, or our power lines are blown down by heavy winds, by dry earth over a long period of time, by various things. So we've created a system that allows us to monitor the weather and make decisions based on what we see in the weather patterns to preemptively shut off power. Because if we have no power flowing to those areas, then it doesn't matter what happens, it can't become a wildfire ignition source. However, when we do make those decisions, we will notify customers as far in advance as we can. The customers are impacted by those, who will see their power disrupted. Now you can sign up to get alerts on your smartphone, so you can be aware of power shutoffs and any other interruptions, what we call outages, that happen. You'll be alerted to those, and so you can be aware that we may be coming out tomorrow morning for 4 hours to make repairs or upgrades to the power lines in your community, and you may be out of power for that period of time. So you can go to the website on your app, and you can determine, are there any outages planned for the days that I'm going to be in this area or some other area? So you can do that. You can visit our website to learn more about the services that we provide when we do have these PSPS events, because we have representatives go out into the community where these events are occurring, and they're out there to answer questions. They're out there to provide a charging source for your phones. They provide, I believe, water. They may be able to direct you, if they don't already have it there, to a cooling center where they would have air conditioning for you to be cool during those hot days. So you don't just have to lock yourself in your home all day long, but you can come out to these, and the website will show you where these are. And there's many other topics in there related to power outages. It's very important to read that and understand it and know what you have available to you in those particular events. And recognize that we only do these PSPS events when they're absolutely necessary. When the data tells us that there's a probability that's high enough that we could have a wildfire ignition in this area, will we turn power off? And we're actually working to segment our system even to a finer and finer degree, so when we do these shutoffs, we can minimize the number of customers that are affected by that to the ones that are truly in that high fire area. And the last thing, energy for what's ahead. So what are we doing to to advance the clean energy initiatives, the renewable energy, but at the same time, making sure the service that we provide and the product that we deliver is safe, it's reliable, affordable, but also recognize that we have a duty to be responsible stewards of our environment. So we just can't take the environment lightly and just do whatever we want to do because it's going to make your electricity less expensive or more reliable, but in the process, it's going to do harm to the environment. So we have to balance all of these. So what are some of the things that we're doing right now for that? Well, we're installing a lot of what's called covered conductor. As I mentioned earlier, our primary wires, the ones at the top of the poles, are bare wires. They've been that for the 100+ years that we've been around. They're high enough that people can't come in contact with them, so we don't need to insulate them. However, in today's world, things are different now. They become ignition sources. What we've done is we've started installing, several years ago, covered conductor, insulated conductor, so that if something touches it, it's insulated from the bare wire that the electricity is flowing on, and you don't have the ignition source. And we've installed, I don't know, it's over 1,000 miles of that, and we're continuing. We've still got a long way to go, but we're doing many, many hundreds of miles every year. As part of where those billions of dollars a year are being spent. We're creating incentives for people to electrify their homes and their businesses through rebates for various items, and also providing information on how these things can save you electricity. So we're trying to get people to switch from fossil fuels, gas, propane, natural gas, to electricity. We support the installation of EV charging stations. We're putting in, I think, 700 new charging stations this year. We're incentivizing business owners and others to install charging stations to meet the increased use of electricity in EVs. We're also looking at electrifying the transportation sector of the economy. Now, this goes beyond just electric vehicles, electric trucks, electrifying the ports that use a lot of energy. Just anywhere that fossil fuels are being used, we're looking at ways to change that to the use of electricity. Now, recognize that a lot of our power still comes from fossil fuel sources. Gas-fired turbines, natural gas-fired turbines. So even if you're using energy efficient or non-fossil fuel electric systems, you're still maybe getting your electricity from that. We don't have a way of filtering out the electricity that goes into your home to just be the electricity that's generated at a wind farm or a solar installation. It's all mixed together and it all looks the same. But at some point, we're converting all of this to where the majority of our power will come from renewable clean sources. So that's the extent of my presentation. So any questions that anybody has, ask them right now. You can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. You can. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your presentation. 谢谢 John 精彩的演讲。那接下来我们将请到华兴保险汽车房屋保险销售经理 Ingrid Shen 来我们讲解一下，我们房屋保险会由于这个安装太阳能而受到影响吗？有请 Ingrid。
Hello， 大家好，我是 Ingrid Shen， 华兴保险的保险销售经理。那这边的话呢，我会跟大家大概讲解一下我这边的这个房屋保险的太阳能对于房屋保险的一个影响。那这边的话呢，如果说您的房屋保险的话是购买的话呢，那这种情况下呢，那其实对于房屋保险是会有一个影响的，就像刚才John也提到的。那这边的话呢，房屋保险这边的话会对你的这个重建价值会产生，尤其是说，如果说你的房屋保险的话呢，你的 solar panel 是建在你的主体房屋上面的话呢，那这种情况下，在主体房屋的时候就会增加你的重建价值，我们也叫做这个 dwelling， 那是这一部分。那另外一个的话呢，就是说，如果说你的这个房子，你的这个 solar panel 今天不是建在这个主体房子的上面呢，你是建在可能比如说你的 garage， 你的这个车库，或者是说可能有的人有这个 pool house， 那可能是建在这些上面的话呢，那其实对于保险公司来说，这个我们并不算做 dwelling coverage， 我们其实在这种情况下会算作是 other structure。那就是其实 other structure 字面意思理解的话呢，就是除主体建筑以外的一些其他的建筑。那就像刚才提到的这个 garage 或者是 guest house 或者是 pool house， 那这些统一都是属于 other structure 的部分。那这些情况的话呢，那因为你在这个 solar panel 的造价本身大概可能都是2万多块，甚至可能更多，因为看你购买了几块。那这种情况下，对于这些都是有影响的。那这样子的话呢，你通知了保险公司之后呢，那保险公司就会提高你的 dwelling coverage 或者是 other structure 的这个 coverage。那这种情况下，当然啦，你的重建价值、你的保额提高了，那你的保费这边的话也会提高。那有的人可能就会问说，那这种情况下呢，那 solar panel 怎么来保？那保的情况是怎么样的？那其实理赔的情况呢，跟房屋保险本身是一样的。如果说着火了，今天整个房子烧起来，导致说你的 solar panel 也一起被烧掉了，那这种情况下的话呢，其实保险公司就会一起来做一个理赔，就是甚至你的 solar panel 也是包在里面的。那另外一种情况呢，比如说可能今天刮大风啊，屋顶吹跑啦，甚至是说把你的 solar panel 也一起刮跑了，那这种情况下也是一样， solar panel 跟房屋保险一起，保险公司都会来做一个理赔。那这个主要是针对于太阳能板是买的情况下，但是如果说今天你是租的太阳能板，那当然啦，因为太阳能板本身不属于你，那这种情况下，保险公司就不会提高你的任何 coverage， 因为这个东西不属于你。那所以的话呢，相对来说，你的保费也不会有任何变更。那当然啦，对于保险来说，有发生理赔的情况，保险也不会提供一个理赔。那这个就是太阳能对这个房屋保险的一个影响。那太阳能呢，其实对于汽车保险来说，它也是有一个影响的。那但是相对于房屋保险来说，它的影响比较间接，因为其实现在很多人都会去购买这个电车。那电车的话呢，很多人也会就是因为有购买电车，对太阳能也就有一个变相的一个需求，那也会匹配来购买这个太阳能，甚至是这个储蓄电池这样子。那这种情况下呢，很多人会说，哎，那我买电车对于汽车保险有没有影响？那其实影响还蛮大的，尤其现在很多人都比较喜欢买 Tesla。那电车的保费呢，其实相对来说会比较高，尤其是 Tesla 这种品牌的电车。那首先的话呢，它在修理的时候，它不是任何车行都可以修的，它很多时候都是需要 Tesla authorized 的 body shop。 那这种情况下呢，就代表说保险公司在帮你修车的时候，其实所有的很多的这个零件都是需要 Tesla 原件的。那这种情况下就变成说，保险公司需要帮你修理的费用也变高了，相较于普通的这种油车来说的话，那这种情况下，我们也会建议客人，那这种可以试试看，如果你有其他的房子，我们汽车跟房屋做在一起的话呢，它会有一个多保单的折扣。那这样的话也能帮你自己拿够折扣。那现在有的公司呢也有提供一些 renew 的时候呢，也会提供一些新的折扣，比如说你的低里程啊，或者一些 Costco 的折扣。那这种情况下的话呢，大家都可以去跟现在的保险经纪，或者是联系我们华兴保险来做一个估价。那我们这边帮您对比一下，做一个免费的估价，您可以就是说多省一点嘛，毕竟这个汽车保险已经比较贵了，或者是说你电车的贷款也好啊，或者是说你购买这个太阳能板 solar panel 这边你可能是贷款买的呀，那像这些费用的话，相应的都能省下来一些。那这些的话，基本上就是太阳能对我们这个保险行业的一些影响了。那我们华兴保险的话呢，本身在南加也已经几十年的经验啦。那这边的话呢，下面我们也是在各种社交平台上都有我们的这个联系方式，可以关注我们的 Facebook 微信公众号，甚至去浏览我们的官方网站，以及我们的 YouTube，那都是非常欢迎大家来跟我们联系。那接下来的话，大家有其他什么问题吗？
谢谢 Ingrid。大家如果有问题的话，可以在我们的 Q&A 里面留言或者举手，那我们马上就会有 Q&A 的 session. I want to quickly summarize what Ingrid said in English. So for solar panel, if you purchase the solar panel, no matter you finance or pay in cash, that solar panel belongs to you. So your home insurance will very likely to increase due to the increase of dwelling coverage. So you may pay more premium for the insurance. But if you rent the solar panel, that not belongs to you, so there's no effect on your house insurance. And for the car, if you own electric car, your premium will very likely to increase as well because the repairing cost for electric car is very high. But you can always contact KCAL to see if we have multi-policy or low mileage discounts for your insurance. So yeah, let's move on to the Q&A section. 请大家有问题的话赶快发问。那我们这边呢，之前也收到了不少大家的留言，我现在这边就是会用英文来读出来，有请我们的 John 和 Ingrid 来回答。第一个问题，so first question goes to John. Is there any financial support from the government? Also, do you share a list of reliable companies? Thank you.
Okay, I assume that question means, is there any government support for rooftop solar?
I think so.
Okay. The federal government has a tax credit. And that means that for every dollar that your solar system costs, you are able to reduce your taxes by that exact dollar. So it's a dollar for dollar rather than it's not a write-off, but it's a tax credit. And I believe that is currently, as I said in my presentation, somewhere between 22 and 26% of the cost. So you would put your solar system in, and you'd go online and start producing electricity. And then in that year that happens, when you file that tax return, there's a form that you would complete that would give you that tax credit, and it would come off of the taxes owed. The state used to provide a tax credit. They no longer do for solar. As far as Edison recommending contractors for solar, I don't believe that we do. We try to stay out of that area. If you could go to our website and you can see what's there, because I know there have been some programs where they've had to use qualified contractors for installation of things like, for instance, it could be a different type of hot water heater. And you would have to use a certain contractor to install those in order to be eligible for the tax or the rebate from Edison. but I don't believe that we make any recommendations for solar installation companies. My suggestion would be talk to people that have solar on their house, ask them who they've used and how they felt that process went. And by all means, get multiple bids. It's very easy to get a solar bid. I think I got about a half a dozen of them when I put solar on my house before I selected the one. And there was a significant difference in price amongst all of the ones that I used until I finally made my decision, which was a combination of price and people that I trusted that had used that company for that installation and had a good experience with them.
Thank you. Second question, for the solar panel users, how is the surplus electricity calculated? Like, are they stored in the Edison and provide back to the user at night, or are they immediately transferred to the credit?
The way it works is with your smart meter is your smart meter can determine whether the electricity is flowing from Edison to your home or from your home solar system into the Edison power lines. And so they're measuring the amount of power that's being put back into the grid from your solar system. And then they're paying you a fixed price for every kilowatt hour of energy that you put into the grid. So it is in real time, but it's happening throughout the sunlight time when you're generating, and it depends on how much power you're using in your home. If you're not using enough power in your home to use all of the available generation that you're getting from your solar panels, then you will be putting excess power into the grid that Edison will be buying from you. However, if you're using more electricity in your home than your solar system is capable of providing, and remember that your system is going to have a variable output throughout the day. As the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, that's where you'll get your highest generation. But getting up to that point and then dropping off from that point, you'll see your power increase and decrease. So you may be using the same amount of electricity throughout the day, but at some point you may be using more than you generate and you may be using less than you generate. And if you're using less, then you've got to buy power from Edison. So that's how it works. The system can monitor the electricity that's going out to the grid in real time.
Thank you. There's a quick question. So can we switch between time of use to tier electric bill? I assume the answer is yes, right?
Can you switch between the two? Is that what you're asking?
The time of use and the tier.
Yes. Well, yes and no. What happens if everybody's going to end up on time of use at some point, and the tiered structure is going to go away? There's a transition period for that to happen. We've already moved pretty much all of the business side of our electric use to time of use. All Edison employees this year were required to move to time of use. If you go to solar, once you put rooftop solar on, you're automatically moved into time of use. You cannot go back to the rate to the tiered system with solar on your house. I think right now you'd have to voluntarily move to time of use from the tiered system. I don't think anybody has moved from tiered to time of use unless they voluntarily did that. But once you're on the time of use, if you have solar, you're not going to be able to go off of time of use. And as I said in the beginning, everybody is eventually going to be on time of use. And that's not many, many years from now. That's going to be in the near foreseeable future. Everybody will be on time of use. So it's inevitable it's going to happen. And again, you need to look carefully because you could actually save money on time of use or tiered, depending again on how you can manage the use of your electricity. Time of use is all about, just like the name implies, it's when you use the electricity. And if you can control, if you're disciplined enough to control your use of electricity when it's at its cheapest rate, you can benefit from time of use as opposed to the tiered system. But if you use it during the peak times, you can pay an awful lot for that energy. So I think the bottom line is that it won't be long before it's a non-question because everybody will be on time of use. But you can't switch back once you go to solar.
Great.
The only thing you can do, I'll make this, is there's two different time of use. There's 4 to 8 and 5 to 9. You do have the ability to choose one of those two, and the prices are different for each one of those. So you have to look carefully at that and see again how you can manage your power use to stay out of that peak time.
Thank you. And I saw someone raise their hand, so let's call Ying Chao. Are you here? You can start speaking right now. Hi, are you there? Let's move to Shelly. Shelly, are you here?
Yes, hi. Question, continue the tier rate and the time of use. If I want to change, I just call the office of Southern California Edison, or can do it online?
I don't know. I would imagine you could do it online, but I don't want to say absolutely because I have no experience with that, and it's outside of the areas. I mean, you can always call customer service, but I could tell you that if you can do it online, that's the best way to do it. It's going to save you the most amount of time because there can be long delays in trying to connect to customer service. We recently moved into a different system that we operate all of our customer service under, and it can use up there can be wait times in the hours, measured in hours. So if you can do it online, that's the best way to do it. But if you have specific questions that you need to ask, you likely won't be able to get answers online.
I see. Okay, John. One more question. Is there a time limit to say customer only can switch once a year?
I believe there's a limit of how many times you can switch, and I think it might be one time a year. I think it's not likely people are going to be switching back and forth between time of use and tiered systems. You're going to evaluate which one is in your better financial interest, and you're going to make that decision. What can happen is you can switch that 4 to 8 or 5 to 9 window of the peak time. You can make that switch. That's where people might say, well, this isn't working out so well for me. Say 4 to 8. I'd like to switch to 5 to 9, or I'd like to try 5 to 9 because I think 5 to 9 is going to give you lower prices than 4 to 8.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the website's really, really good for this. It does a very good job of explaining this visually so you can see it, how it works.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yes.
And let's welcome Mei Chao. Mei Chao, are you here?
Hi. I live in an older community, and I would like to install a Tesla charger. Purchase the Tesla and install a charger. And also, I'm looking to install the solar panel. And because I'm in the older community, and where do I get started as far as the electrical panel goes? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I hear your question. I understand it, because you can have problems, not problems, but you can have significant costs added to your system in older homes because you won't have the panel capacity, or the panel won't be up to the code that's required for them to come in and install that. Probably the easiest way to find out is to contact a solar company and say you want to get a bid for solar, and have them, because they'll come out to your home and they'll sit down with you and they'll go through, they want to see your bill, and Edison has it so that you can show them your 12-month bill. That's what they'll want to see, is what your electricity use is over a 12-month period. They'll come out to your home. They can look at your current electrical system, your panel and the like, and they can make an assessment of whether that's going to be adequate or you're going to have to upgrade that, because that could add considerable cost. I've seen numbers of $10,000 or more for people who had to upgrade their electrical system. The other thing with putting in a charger of any kind, a Tesla charger or any other one, is for fast charging, you're going to have 220 volt system. And if your house doesn't have that already, say your garage doesn't have 220, then you're going to have to wire for 220. And depending on where your panel is, like I have this in my home, my panel is all the way on the other side of the house from the garage. So if I want 220 power in my garage, I have to run a 220 source, two legs of 120 all the way around my house to get over to the garage. That's the only way that I can get 220 in there. So, there's going to be a cost of doing that. Either I have to do it myself or I'd have to hire an electrician to do it. So and electricians, I know I had to have my panel replaced, and I was shocked when it cost me like $3,500, and they did it in a half a day. And I just was amazed at how expensive it was. So it can add a lot of cost to it. That's a problem with an older home. I mean, when you say an older community, I mean, the house that I am in is vintage 1950s. I don't know if your house is, if that's what you mean by older. I mean, there's some houses in the Los Angeles or the Southern California that are over 100 years old. Those are likely going to have problems if they haven't been upgraded. They may still have the old knob and post electrical up in your attic. So if your house is 40, 50 years old, you might be okay. But they should be, the person who comes out to do your estimate, to talk to you, should be able to look at your panel and make that evaluation and tell you if that can be used or if it's going to have to be upgraded, to let you know what the cost of that might be. Now, I believe that if you have to do all of that to install your solar, then you'd have to talk to somebody who's knowledgeable on taxation laws. But I believe that you would be able to include that as the base cost of your solar system, and then you would be able to get the federal tax credit for that as well. So it would help to pay for some of that. It would be whatever it was required for you to do in order for you to be able to put in your solar system, as opposed to, well, while you're doing that, why don't you upgrade it for these other things too? That's a gray area. Same with your roof. Like I put on a brand new roof on my house at the same time that I put solar on, and I was able to use some of the cost of the roof in the cost of the solar system, because I couldn't put a solar system on the roof that existed. But that's a question you'd want to talk to a tax expert about, but that could help you in that particular case.
Thank you. May I ask another question?
Yes.
Earlier you mentioned about renewable source of energies. I actually live in OC, Orange County, and I heard about the OCPA.
Yes.
I have no idea, but however, it seems like if we don't opt out, we will be transferred to OCPA. How does it? I thought by default we should stay with Edison, but the way it was introduced, it's dawned on me, it's actually reverse. If we don't say we want to stay with Edison, we will be transferred automatically to OCPA.
That's correct. You're correct about that. It's by default, you're going to get transferred unless you opt out, which you have to do. That's the way it's set up now. I have to be really careful talking about this because there are some significant restrictions that are put on utility people when it comes to this, because the system has been established to try to be fair, and these power authorities, that are called CCAs, that have come into cities to establish these. Basically, they come to a city and they say, we'll provide you with power. We'll become your power provider. And we have, we're supporting green energy, clean energy. And then they'll give people options usually of how much clean energy they want to support. Now, recognize, like I said in my presentation, that you can sign up for clean energy. That does not mean you can go and tell everybody that that all of the electricity that's in my house is from clean energy sources. It doesn't work that way. It's clean energy electrons look exactly the same as fossil fuel generated electrons. They're all the same. They all feed into the grid, and we don't have a filter that we can put on your house that filters out all of the energy created by fossil fuel and only lets the energy that was created by solar panels and wind and hydro and nuclear into your home. So all you're doing when you do that is you're supporting that industry by providing that money, and then they hopefully go out and use that to build up clean energy sources like wind farms and solar installations and the like. But we have to be careful as utility representatives of how we approach this subject, because they have challenged it. The CCAs have challenged the utilities, that saying that they have an unfair advantage with your customers and the connection that we have with our customers to convince customers that it's best to stay with the utility and not go with the CCA. What I will tell you is that right now, about 47% of the energy that Edison provides to its customers comes from clean energy sources. We only have about 8% of our customer base that we actually own the generation. We have hydro, we have a fossil plant in San Bernardino called Mountain View, and we have 5 peaker plants located around Southern California that come online during high demand times. So they run for very short periods of time when the demand is high. That's all we have in the way of generation. That satisfies about 8% of what our customers need. We've divested ourselves long ago of most of our generation. So most of the energy that we provide to our customers, we are buying it from third-party suppliers. That's how we get to 47%. And we're moving forward under the agreements that the policy that's California set forth. And we're supporting that by continually growing that clean energy portion of our business, which ultimately should reach nearly 100%. So you are getting clean energy when you buy energy. You are supporting clean energy when you buy energy from Edison. Now, how does this work? Are you hurting us if you move to say, Orange County Power Authority or any other CCA? Absolutely not, because that power still has to be run over transmission lines and distribution lines that we control. They don't come in and take away our power lines, our distribution lines, or come in and put their own in there. So all you're going to do is tell us that we now have to buy our power, X amount of money that has to be spent at this particular supplier to provide electricity, which we're already doing. It's just, it may be somebody different that's being driven by the CCA for a particular city, as opposed to us just deciding where we go to get our power from. So it's not something that we're concerned about. It's not going to hurt our business. Honestly, as hard as it may be to believe this, Edison does not make money selling electricity. We sell you electricity at cost. What it costs us to produce it, deliver it, and manage and operate the system, that's all we get. We don't get a profit added to that. The way the company makes money is when we build things. When we build stuff, we're allowed a capital rate of return on that investment. And that's guaranteed by the CPUC. And in your rates, we collect that. But the electricity that we provide to you is sold at cost. It's hard to understand it because it's so different than anything else. You go to Walmart, you buy something at Walmart, everything there they sell has a profit built into it. That's not the way the electric utilities, the investor-owned utilities like Edison operate, because we're regulated by the state. So you make a decision one way or the other. I think you just need to look at the bottom lines. They'll tell you what you're going to pay for your electricity, and you know how much we're charging for it. And we don't change our rates every day. It's regulated, so your rates are set, and then you make your decision. If you want to support clean energy at 100%, then maybe the CCA is the best direction for you to go, because you can move all of your rate, payments to supporting that. It's up to you, but you're right about default. You're going to get put into that. If you want to stay with Edison, you're going to have to opt out.
I feel that's the wrong way to do it. I believe California open to the alternative source of energy, especially renewable and clean energy. But however, basically, this may not be, completely mature. And also the publication that I'm aware of, I don't feel comfortable to move myself to OCPA. So, but I have to call to opt myself out to opt myself out from a company that provide my energy for years.
Yeah.
That's very awkward, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think the reason for that is that there was a feeling that when this stuff was put through, and this was put through at the state level, by state legislation, I think there was a feeling that if it was the other way around, the utility has too much market power and control to give the CCAs a fair shake at it. So they said, okay, there were a lot of challenges that the CCAs made that the state didn't allow them. There were a lot of things that they said they weren't going to let us share facts with our customers if they asked us about stuff, and they didn't want us to do that, because they said, well, that gives this utility an opportunity not just to state facts, but to influence people by either embellishing facts or by not giving them both sides of the story. So they didn't allow that to happen, but I think they went this direction to prevent people from feeling that the CCAs wouldn't have an opportunity. I kind of agree with you in some ways on that. I think it would have been a better to do it the other way around, but it's not wasn't my choice. It is a maturing industry. And the one thing that you can, if you have issues with this, then probably your best approach to having your voice heard is with your vote. When you vote the people in your city, like your city council and your mayor and those people, when you vote them in, because they're the ones who made these decisions to move into this. It wasn't put up to a vote by the people. It was your representatives that you voted in that these things were pitched to, and they made the decision to bring these CCAs into your city for whatever reasons. So that's if you have issues with it, then your best approach is to look at the people that you voted in and vote accordingly.
Thank you, John. So due to the time consuming, we will do the one last question. This one's for Ingrid. So there's an audience asking, 如果地震导致太阳能板损坏的话，保险公司会理赔吗？ So if the earthquake caused the solar panels broken, will the insurance company cover the claim?
OK， 如果地震险的话，因为本身地震险它也是有 cover 这个 dwelling coverage，那 limit 的话 usually 是跟你的房屋保险是一样的，所以如果说因为地震原因导致的话，它这边也是有 cover 的。那我用英文也讲一下。So for earthquake insurance, so as a limit for the dwelling coverage, usually is matches your homeowner or rental property insurance. So if something really happened for your solar panel due to the earthquake, then earthquake policy will still cover it.
但是我们普通的房屋保险是没有保地震险的，对吗？
对，因为房屋保险跟地震保险还是分开的。那因为本身房屋保险它是没有 cover 这个地震，还有这个 flood insurance， 就是这个水灾保险。所以这种情况下的话呢，地震险以及这个 flood insurance 这边都是需要单独购买的。So homeowner insurance is different as earthquake policy. So and it doesn't cover that. So if you want to have the coverage for the earthquake, so you will need to buy a separate policy. So it is called earthquake policy, and some insurance company will have a little bit discount for that. So you can buy the earthquake policy through the insurance company to get a bundle price. And in that case, your solar panel, if it's damaged by the earthquake, it will also cover it. And also the flood insurance is also not in the homeowner insurance. So if you live nearby the beach, you may need to still want to get a quote for the flood insurance.
Thank you, Ingrid. 那时间关系，我们今天的讲座就到这边了。如果大家有更多的问题呢，就留言或者是在我们这个讲座结束后的 survey 里面呢，把这个问题留给我们，我们也会一起发给 John。那今天的讲座呢，也会有回放视频，我们会放在我们华兴保险的 YouTube channel 华兴保险美国生活好邻居里面。那谢谢大家。So we will put the replay of today's webinar on our YouTube channel. And if you have more questions, you can leave a question on the survey after the webinar. Thank you so much, John and Ingrid, for joining us today. Thank you. And take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.